Okay, we're going to be doing a pre-trip inspection today on your typical 8-yard or tandem axle truck from front to back. The M47 is a form that's kind of a guideline as far as what we need to check. Checking overall condition of the vehicle, make sure there's nothing broke, missing, possibly damaged that could cause a failure when you're out on the road.
For YDOT, one of our primary goals is safety of our employees. You know, that's in our mission statement. So the pre-trip walk around on equipment is really essential to have that safety for our employees, also for the driving public that'll come in contact with our equipment.
We want to make sure that you're safe as long as your vehicle is, and be safe for the traveling public. You want to check for any loose connections on air hoses, fluid hoses, or air-to-air connections. Check for any leaks, whether it be fluid or exhaust leaking, back by the turbo, manifold. Fluid levels, make sure that they're filled to the appropriate levels, whether it be hot or cold. Grab the belt, make sure that there are no cracks or broken pieces on the back side of it or visible defects. Make sure that it is tight, no more than 3/4 of an inch deflection. Fan blade, or make sure there's no broken blades. The alternator, make sure that it's tight, no broken wires coming off of it, any visible defects to it. Check your oil and pull the dipstick out. Typically wipe it off and reinsert it and pull it out again. You want it to be in between the max and the min area on the hash marks. Checking all hose connections, make sure there's no leaks. Steering linkage, make sure that there's no broken U-joints in the linkage itself. No excessive play. The air compressor, make sure no leaks coming from it, any oil leaks. Either a braided steel line or copper lines leading to and from the air compressor. Power steering reservoir, make sure it's within the appropriate level, min cold or max hot. Check the belt and fan, make sure it's no broken blades on it. Check your front suspension, make sure there's no cracks in the leaf springs themselves. Shackle bolts are all good, kingpins, no cracks, welds, anything that shouldn't be in place there. You want to check the front axle and the brakes, make sure that they're properly adjusted. ABS lines are all intact, not cut, frayed, any wires, hoses. All the turning components, steering linkage, castle nuts and cotter pins are in place. And checking for any visual defects in the bumper or frame. Overall condition of the lights, make sure there's no cracks. Make sure that they are clean. The frame and the hitch mounting bracket, make sure there's no cracks in the welds or fatigued iron. You're gonna wanna check the tires, make sure there's no cuts in them or adverse wear in the tread itself. The rim, make sure there's no dents or cracks or welds in the rim itself. Make sure the lug nuts are all tight. The front axle oil level. The mirrors, make sure that they are clean, no cracks. Make sure that they're securely mounted. All your exhaust, make sure the shield's in place. It is secured to the truck. Make sure there's no leaks, no soot or residue coming out of the exhaust to indicate a leak. I'm gonna check the tires, properly inflated, no adverse wear to the tread itself. Lug nuts, make sure that they are tight. And kind of looking for the same thing here on the back set of duals, properly inflated. Got good tread wear, lug nuts, the hub seal, no leaks on it. The suspension, leaf springs, shackle bolts. Make sure there's nothing broken, missing, anything that you can obviously see. I'm gonna be checking your lights as you go. Make sure that they're all clean, no cracks in them. Make sure that your mud flaps are in place, not torn or hanging. Your pintle hitch, make sure that the bolts are tight. A couple more lights up under here, make sure that they're clean. You want to make sure that the locking mechanism does work on the hitch. Check the battery cover box, make sure it's secure, not going to come off while you're going down the road, along with your toolbox, that it is secured and shut. And the valve body box cover, make sure it's secure, not going to come off. And you want to check the driver's area and fuel tank. Make sure that the not leaking any fuel. Fuel cap, make sure that the gasket is inside and secure to the tank. It's not loose, cross-threaded. Make sure all the steps tight, clean of debris. Do get a lot of snow, ice build up on them. And on the in-cab check, we use 3-point stands climbing in and out of the truck. Turn the key on, let the gauges clear before trying to start the truck. And go ahead and fire up the truck. You want to make sure that the oil pressure and all the gauges come up to appropriate level right away. Okay, as soon as you start the truck, you're going to want to make sure that the gauges come up to appropriate running level. The water temp comes up, you got your voltmeter, air pressure gauges, and fuel gauge, tachometer. Make sure the seat belt, there's no cuts or frays, that it's secured. It does latch. Adjust your mirrors if need be. And backup alarm, make sure that it's working. Interior lights, all dash lights do work. Emergency equipment, fire extinguisher, triangles, and fuses. And check your horns, make sure that they all work. On the air brake test, you know, make sure that the governor does work on the truck. Should kick out around 125 psi. Once it does that, you can go ahead and shut the truck off. And turn the key back on. With parking blocks in place, you want to release your parking brake. Hold the brakes down for approximately 1 minute. And make sure after the first initial drop in air pressure that there's no more than 3 psi loss on a single unit. If you're pulling a trailer with air brakes combination, you're going to want no more than 4 psi within that first minute. Then you continue to bleed the brakes down, and you should have an alarm comes on around 60 psi. That should come on. And continue bleeding the brakes down to the protection pop-off valve kicks in, which is around 25 psi. And at that point, you can go ahead and start the truck back up again. While the air pressure is building back up, you can check your indicator lights, turn signals, inside cab lights, and make sure that the wipers do work. And make sure the defrost and heater does work, and all the different levels of the fan do work. Final step is just go ahead and set the cruise and set the idle to 1,000 RPM or so for a final warm-up of the engine, and pretty much ready to go out. At the end of the shift, when you're done with your truck, do a post-trip inspection, just general condition of the vehicle, any adverse wear to the tires that may have occurred while you're working, any leaks, note any operating problems observed during daily use, and then drain the water from the air brake system. If you do find something that needs to be repaired or further inspected, make sure you fill out your SO5 form and submit it.
We want to make sure that the person coming on this shift, if there's anything that happened the last shift, they notice it, i.e. even damage to the equipment.
Well-maintained equipment is key to safety, and safety is important to all of us at WYDOT. Do your part to ensure your safety and the safety of the traveling public.